Okay, so it's taken me a couple weeks to actually finish this project with a 12-volt electric AC compressor. They have 3 different iterations of inverters that come with this thing, and the wiring for the one that I have is so. So you have the battery positive, fan negative, negative ground battery, your VCC positive, and a remote for your LED. So you'd have your yellow wire, your green wire, and black, green, yellow, red. So if you're going to wire this thing up to operate at a variable RPM, so the compressor is going to raise RPM, lower RPM, you're not going to worry about it cycling. Newsflash, it's probably not going to cycle anyways. Then you're going to want to wire it up like this. What you would have is your evaporator temperature sensor, and it would go as so. On a 94 Jeep Cherokee, mind you, there are different iterations of that as well. As the models have changed, things have gotten better. Your reference voltage probably isn't going to be 12 volts. It's probably going to be 5 volts in a newer vehicle. Some of these you're going to have 2 wires, some of them you're going to have 3, some of them you're going to have 4. I'd recommend going with one like this that has a 12 volts reference signal, because that's how this thing's going to want to operate. It doesn't operate below 5 volts. So the compressor won't come on below 5 volts. It's just not enough of a reference for the inverter to pick up the signal. I've tried it on a couple different DC power supplies. So it really wants to see between 5 and 14.5 volts to vary the RPM of the compressor. You're not going to see any difference above 12 volts. Mine's running at 11 volts. It's not any different than it is at 12 volts or 14.5, I can tell you that. It runs the same no matter what. Unless you go below 10 volts. Then the RPMs will drop and your performance is going to drop along with that. And the performance on this thing is already mediocre. So you wire it up to the VCC positive, and that is going to give you a voltage drop. You're going to end up from 12 volts down to what I got was 7 volts was the lowest I actually got. And I wouldn't recommend this setup. Then you obviously have your yellow line, it's your positive. You run it down to an LED light wherever you want to mount that light so you can actually see it blink, and then run that to ground and you're done. You don't have to do anything else except for hook this thing up and do things. I wouldn't recommend mounting it under the hood like I have. It just made the most sense. One, I had multiple projects. I wanted to redo the air box, get rid of the air box that was right there, free up all this space to do other things. And I didn't want to get rid of my factory air filter. I don't want to go get a friggin' K&N blah 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 part number that I'm going to forget in 3 years, and then mount the air filter in a place where I'm probably never going to work on it, because you'd have to actually screw the box into the cowl, cut the cowl out. This will work better for me because I can still snap the friggin' regular retainers off the top of the box and change my filter. And this is just sealed shut right now because I'm not going to have to go in here unless I lose AC. So it's going to be the last thing on my mind. I went ahead, sealed the cowl off. Come over here. I made a plate, sealed that all off, siliconed everything, and put my snorkel back on. And I have true cold air intake, which is important because this thing doesn't want to run hot. So it's going to suck air into the box, through to the filter, and then it goes out. I've already mounted this guy up as an air compressor. That's already been spoke about. So if you don't want to do this, I'd recommend doing this. Like I said, you got your 12 positive, fan, negative, your VCC, and your LED. What I have done is at the bottom of the compressor, that's my little podunk drawing, I have an 85-degree snap cap, epoxy to the bottom of the compressor. I come out of that and go to my low pressure switch, and then I'm going to my temperature switch in the box, the air box. Then I'm going to my ECM. So my computer will cycle this compressor as it would cycle your factory compressor. It's not going to cycle. Like I said, the pressures this thing operates at are below optimal pressures. I had 50 degrees on the low side and 150 on the high side. You know how that works. You really, that's terrible numbers. So I had it on an 80-degree day. I wanted to be between 45 and 55 on the low side, and 175 and 200 on the high side. Once you get to 50 psi on the low side, you will not get above 160 psi on the high side. It just won't operate like that. Now, this may be a bad compressor, and you may have better luck, but I did not. With that said, what you do is you do what anybody else would do if they're just trying to get by with their AC. You fill your AC to the low side. So if you want to be at 55, I actually would make the pressures make sense at your high side levels. So just fill to like 50 psi and call it a day. Don't go above 50 psi, because it'll just, on a hot day, it's going to skyrocket. You're going to be running 70 psi on your low side, 160 on your high side. Your AC performance is going to be horrible. So that's my recommendation there. Other than that, it does work. I have my complaints about it. It's not the best system in the world, and it's actually more expensive than running your factory AC compressor. Unless you had a reason to run something like this, like I do. I had other things to do, and I'm actually going to make this a dual zone and make a little tiny cooler in the back. And this compressor is not going to care about that. None of the compressors do. It's just splitting your lines. So I'm there. That's what I've done. I hope you guys have better luck with yours.